their knock-on effects are also transformative, often in negative form, and we know about water depletion, Punjab, etc., etc. Um, what had been against Nehruvian planning, of course, had been a Gandhian form of, as you describe it, bottom-up,
Sarvodaya.
yeah, and again a riverine image, or the sea in this case, all boats raised by the same tide. But and it seems in the ecological universe globally, one of the reasons why Gandhi has sort of returned to attention is because his preaching was, of course, about entirely democratic forms of local action, highly individualized
Non-state.
and non-state, and that also presumed a critique of this idea of limitless desires, limitless wants, and limitless possibilities. If the Anthropocene has told us anything, is that nothing is limitless, and the limitless is indeed what is the most destructive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, India is a very interesting site for the playing out of this debate, and I've made it a crude debate between Gandhi and Nehru. It's not like that. Both have faults and, if you will, merits to them. But the point being that in India we have a longish history. The whole history of Indian independence has been here and there about this conversation.
Yeah.
And as a historian as well, perhaps I'm delusional, but I think that some sensibility about that, some sensitivity to and consciousness of that history really allows people to ground these debates, that they're not simply technocratic debates.
Yes.
That these are things we have already been having, these conversations. And they're important because they show that it's not about new fixes and simply new ideas. It's about a now quite long-lived, at least 70 years, if not much longer, of reflection and experimentation
Yes.
on this very precise question, and it happens everywhere.
Yeah. And if you think of stuff from a slightly different perspective, what is the river? It is a floating biome. It has got so many species in it, right? We don't even know. This is the sixth extinction. One day we'll take the tally of how many things are disappearing, from our midst. I don't know. I was very influenced by the writing of one particular anthropologist, Eduardo Cohn. He's written a wonderful book on the Upper Amazon called Thinking Like a Forest. Now you can say, what a silly idea. Do forests think? I think they do also, in a different way, because, the forest is already in our brains. There's no such thing as a forest outside of human consciousness, as far as I know. So if that is the case, then we need to think about that. That we need to think about a different kind of sharing of a particular inheritance and landscape. And it's not just a question of honeybees disappearing or, there's no pollination because of, butterflies disappearing. It is actually the connection that is very much the sentient connection between a landscape and a people, which we know that these top-down projects disrupt, unearth, uproot, and create misery. We know that. We've seen it over and over again. And maybe that's the thing. If you want to learn something from the past, this is the time.
Mine is not a question, rather. It's far from mythology or history. You told that Akbar used to store the water of Ganga because it had some healthy properties, right? Just an observation. India was a land of cholera.
Yes.
And people used to drink water from Ganga and also from ponds and lakes. Who ate from the ponds and lakes used to have cholera, but who used to drink from Ganga,
Yes.
they didn't develop. And later on, scientific study revealed there are some strains of Escherichia coli bacteria which doesn't allow the cholera to develop. So it's one of those things.
Yes. No, I mean, I actually look at this pretty extensively. There are many possibilities. One is oxygenation of the water in shallow pools, algae. But the most common thread of research which started in the 19th century, and I go into this, was the discovery of bacteriophage virus. And so the bacteriophage virus basically is a virus that lives from the lysis of the genetic material of the E. coli bacteria, and it is kicked into action in where there's a great concentration of E. coli. Right now, the Professor Devendra Bhargava has studied this. It is not conclusive, and although I did study medicine unsuccessfully once, I will not reveal that. I have some interest in that, but it's an old idea. In fact, do you know that Alexander Fleming actually accidentally hit upon the idea that fungus kills bacteria? Doctors, please, apologies, my crude understanding. And in the 1930s, fudge therapy was very common. My mother tells me that she used to have fudge files for throat cultures, and things like that. Now, is it true that is the case? I don't think there's one idea. But the idea that, think about this, for millions of years, hominids have drunk water and survived. Right? So it's not that. It is how? Running water. I did it, and I ask you to do the same. Go to the upper reaches of the Ganges. Go past Gangotri. Go on the road of Gomukh. Go to Chirbasha or Bhujbasha, or go further. Drink that water. I have done it. I think it's a miracle. That water. I mean, I don't know. It's probably my own fantasy and imagination. But you drink that water, and there's no way you'll ever feel that you're drinking something that can. But will that survive? I mean, again, human presence. It's just simple. You increase the human presence on a particular body of water by an exponential margin. What is going to happen? There's no mystery here. The great Chinese, I think it was Lao Tzu who said that human beings are like this. First, the river Huanghe is to flood all the time, but nobody lived there, so everybody was safe. Then they built dikes and started living on the floodplains of the Huanghe. Then people died. So then built more dikes, and there was more population growth, and more people died. So in other words, it is human folly. If you want to multiply and live on the side of a dangerous river, once in a while you will be flooded. And this is way, not millions, thousands of years before Malthus. And Malthus said, there are limits. Read Malthus carefully. There are clear limits about. Malthus was not right about a couple of things. Productivity can be extended. High-yielding varieties of rice. There are certain factors can be extended. And the absence of Malthusian limits, in a way, has created the population of what historians call of the precariat. People living at the edge of danger and subsistence. Right? Nobody asked people to live on chores, sandbanks, diaras. Nobody asked people to live in the bhangas of Sundarban. People are desperate. They have to live. Population growth, and therefore they're vulnerable. When the Anthropocene comes and is coming, and the sea levels rise, some people are going to die before others do, and that is the ecology and the politics of the Anthropocene. I'm sorry to say that. Maybe some of us might live a little longer, and others will not, except for the Dutch who are building seawalls, so they'll survive. I'm going to Amsterdam in a few days. I'll check it out for myself. Thank you.
Show our appreciation for the conversationalists for this evening. Thank you very much, Dr. Sudipta Sen. Thank you very much. And thank all of you also for your valuable inputs and your questions and the points of information that you raised. It has been a fascinating evening of learning and also sort of reconciling ourselves to the fact that, there is no way out of these things. Thank you very much. Good night. There is a way out of this Victoria Memorial Hall, of course. You can all reach home. Thank you.